So, Jalen Rose's racist rant coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, you may or may not be familiar with Jalen Rose. He's been in the news recently because of this racist rant that he made. Now, Jalen Rose first became known as a member of the Fab Five. Now, this was considered the greatest recruiting basketball college class of all time in 1991 at the University of Michigan. Right, the first time all freshmen started and took their team to the championship game. Of course, they lost to North Carolina, and I remember watching that game. There was a lot of hype surrounding that game, more than I've ever seen really any championship game in the NCAA basketball championship game. There was a lot of hype surrounding it about the Fab Five. Anyway, he went on to go to the NBA. And I would say he had a successful career. He played for 13 years, 13 seasons. That's a success, whatever the sport. If you play any sport for 13 years, that's success. He never won a championship. However, he did go to a championship game with the Pacers and Reggie Miller. And inevitably, they lost to the Lakers, the Kobe and the Shaq Lakers. This was the first championship that Kobe and Shaq won together in Los Angeles. After he retired from the league, he's an analyst now on ESPN. I think it should be the woke sports network because of all the wokeness that you see. All these black analysts on the show. You see more and more black analysts going into on the chair behind the cameras, and yet they're more and more crying about racism this, racism that, with all their wokeness. Now, what did Jalen Rose do and say? Well, we know that the Olympics, which should have been last year, but because of COVID, it was pushed back to 21. And we send the basketball team is set, and one white player made the team, Kevin Love. Now he took offense to this. He said that Kevin Love is a white token. They always talk about these black tokens. Well, Kevin Love is the white token. He could complain about how Kevin Love really shouldn't have been on the team because of what he did, even though we know that in a lot of ways the team, the Olympic basketball team is a popularity contest. Ever since the NBA players started playing, it's a popularity contest for the most part. But he claimed that that the NBA or America don't want to send an all-black team, which is stupid, because I read that like 3 out of the last 4 Olympic teams were all black. Regardless, why would you make such a racist statement like this? But anyway, the real question is, why isn't Jalen Rose fired? Even though he went on he did a little apology video, and he got criticized for blacks for that. Some woke blacks for that were doing apologizing for quote unquote speaking the truth, even though it's not the truth. And which really doesn't matter, because there have been many other people who've spoken, anti-political correct statements, who spoke in truth and apologized and still were fired. But I don't see how he has a job, because all of the conservatives who've been fired for far less, the fact that he still have his job is evidence that leftism is being pushed. There's no reason whatsoever why Jalen Rose should still be hired by the NBA. Still be hired by ESPN. Any white person who said anything remotely close to this would have been fired. We all know this is the truth. But yet he still has a job. There have been many conservatives, and black alike, that were fired because they said something conservative. We see conservatives being silenced on social media all the time for quote unquote speaking conservative views. But yet he still has a job. This right here, honestly, this video could be leftist hypocrisy, and really truly it is, because this dude should be fired. I have nothing against him personally as a person. I just don't agree with his politics. I put him in the same vein as Shannon Sharp, you're sitting there crying about the white man and all this, woke racism, crying about racism. You're living a life better than most white people in the country, most people on the planet now, most people who have ever lived. You live a life better than them. Sitting on a white man's TV, in a white man's chair, on a white man's network, behind a white man's, in front of a white man's camera, and crying about the white man. Why would the white man have you there? They could just easily replace you with somebody else white. But again, it's just nonsense. But I don't see how this dude still have a job, and I wouldn't be upset if people. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if people were to basically protest for him to be fired, because he should. It's only fair, and it wouldn't be racist if a bunch of white people claim that he should be fired. He should, because people have been fired for far less. Anyway, y'all, this is my 2 cents on this. So I just still can't believe that you got all these woke people on ESPN, all these black analysts on ESPN, Fox Sports 1, NFL Network, and crying about racism and white supremacy. It doesn't make any damn sense. And like I said, more and more of them are showing, more and more blacks are becoming analysts, and yet they still want to cry about racism. Of course, you still have your good ones on there. You still have your Marcellus Wilder and Jason Woodlock, conservative thinking people who actually think and who are not emotional, they're logical. But anyway, Jalen Rose should be fired. Then there's no excuse for that racist rant. If you can't cry about racism and then be a racist. And it's shocking, though, that the people who are the most racist are the ones who are doing the most crying about race. So he should be gone, y'all. Anyway, as always, until next time.